Hi, I'm Steve Lewis with Oakwood Fruit Farm, and just shooting a little video today, just kind of showing you how we go about irrigating our apple trees here. We probably maybe do it a little different than a lot of places. We don't have any big irrigation wells. We're just irrigating off of regular house wells. We've got 4 or 5 wells around the farms at our houses, and we're just running a regular garden hose in. We've got a float in the tanks to fill them up. And then when they get full, automatically shuts them off, so we're not worrying about running them over. So basically we'll let those fill up in the times when we're not irrigating, turn them on, in the evening and run, and then shut them off and let them refill. And then, so we were able to buy these tanks used. You can buy new tanks. These are about 4,500 gallon tanks. So off those, then we're irrigating the different blocks, and we try and break our blocks up so that we're maybe doing a couple thousand trees at a time, so we can get a couple gallons of water on those trees at a time. We try and rotate through if we've got a bigger block, so we're getting water in those trees every 2 or 3 days. Like I say, it's not ideal. If you had a huge irrigation well, you could just turn it on and irrigate everything at once, but we didn't want to have the cost of drilling a well. We'd have to go about 700 feet to go to a well. And this is just kind of using what we have here, and I think a lot of places, smaller orchards, could do this real easy, especially if you got a couple tanks like this size where you could fill them up when you're not using them, and then run them in between. Just put a float on them, and then you can fill them up, let them run down. After a little bit, you'll figure out how long you can run them on each zone, and before you can, because you don't want to let your water run out and let your pump run dry. Now this particular place is right here, right next to a building, and we have it. So we have an electric pump hooked up. So we just flip the switch, turn it on, open our valves. Other places we are actually hauling water to them in tanks, and we have gas engine for those. And both of them work really well. They'll keep up. The gas engine, you've just got to watch a little more. Make sure you keep gas to them. They got about a gallon gas tank on them, so you've got to kind of make sure you babysit that so they don't run out. Some places it works really good because we know we can turn that on, and in a gallon, if we have it figured out right, when it runs out of gas, then the pump just shuts off, and then we don't have to worry about running out of water and burning a pump up. So if you can see what we have here, so we have our valves coming out of the tank. We always put a stop valve on the bottom so we can shut that off. Here we've got 2 sets of tanks that we're using. If one gets low, we can turn it off, or when we're not irrigating, we can shut that off so the water isn't draining into the block. You always have to put a pressure regulator on here so you don't get too much pressure and ruin your emitters in the orchard. And then a filter. It's really important to have a filter on there, so if you get algae buildup or you get anything in there, we're using a disc filter. You can get all these things at any irrigation place. They'll help you get set up so you got the right size pump and the right size emitter. We're using on all ours, we're using about 4/10 of a gallon to 5/10 of a gallon emitter per hour. So basically it's putting half a gallon. And then you can just kind of figure out the number of trees, the number of emitters. We have ours emitters set at 2 feet apart. With the planting, with the spacing of our trees, that puts an emitter on both sides of every tree, and that for our soil type, that'll make a spot that's wet, that those 2 zones from those drips get very close. They don't meet, but they get close, so we're getting water, to almost that whole entire root zone. And then a few years back, we changed the ways that we're doing them. When we get over, let's just walk over here. We'll shut the video off. We'll walk over to where our head row lines go into a row, and then we'll start back up. Ready? Can you see in the background here? Here's our tanks. Like I said, in this particular place, we have 2 different sets of tanks, so we can fill one and then irrigate off. If that gets down, we can turn it off and switch to the other one. But then we've got where the 2-inch headline comes from the pump. We've got it buried, so we're not running it over and smashing it. It comes underneath the ground here, comes over. This is very important. In this box, you need to make sure that we leave a box And down in this box, you'll see we've got where it comes with T, but we've got a plug in there. So at the end of the year, we can take that plug out and drain all the water out of the lines. That's really important, so that way that you need to have that in a low spot so your water drains back and you're not breaking your water lines underground. You know, so ours, if we were down there, say 4 feet or 5 feet or whatever, but we're not that deep, so we just put these little plugs in. At the end of the season, take those plugs out, make sure everything's drained out, and then we leave those plugs out till the next spring, then we start everything up. Flush a little water through so we make sure there isn't any debris or anything that's got in there, so we don't plug the emitters. Put that plug back in, and then it's ready to go for the year. So then what we do is we've got a 2-inch PVC headline buried all the way along in front of these rows. A couple years ago we changed how we're doing this. So now this is the 2-inch PVC line that runs along in front of all these rows. So we went to a different style now. So if you can see here, now we've got this little piece here that so we just drill a hole in here. It's got this 2-piece rubber grommet. You put this rubber in, goes in like this, and then this part goes in. You just drive this little nipple in here, and it's got this bushing. So when you hit this with a rubber mallet, push that in, then you can see down in there, it'll actually squeeze this rubber together, and then so it won't leak there. So it's really super simple. Wherever you want to have a line, one of these lines come up to the rows. On your headline, you just drill these in, push this in, and then you just push this line. So this would be your regular line. You can just run your drip line right down in there if you want. What we do is the part that's underground, we use just plain hose, does not have any emitters. You could run emitters under the ground, won't hurt anything, but we just did to save money. This plain hose with no emitters and is cheaper. So that just then, this just pushes on here real easy. You push it over those barbs, and then we put a little hose clamp on there just to make sure that that does not come off. Push that up at there, put the hose clamp on there and squeeze it on, and then that comes right up. You can see, comes right up out of the ground here, comes right into our drip line here, and you can see this is our connector. And so anytime we need to splice that piece into that, we have these connectors. They're simple, real simple little connector. Your 2 pieces of that irrigation line slips on here, you push it all the way in, and then you just twist this out, and that puts pressure on there and squeezes that on there and holds those together. We have never had one of these ever come apart. They work great. They're super simple and easy. If we ever get a hose in the drip line for any reason, you can just cut it out, put one of these splicers in. It works great. That's how you splice your rolls when you change from run out of one roll of drip line and start a new one. You use these two. It works super simple. We're just putting ours up on the bottom wire of the trellis here. We use these. These are simple little, we just call them twisties. We get them, you know, they're super, super cheap. You buy these, and we're just putting this around the irrigation line like this. We put them between every tree, as you can see. Holds that drip line up there. We used to just run it on the ground, but we don't like to do that anymore. 1, it's easier to get in the mower. 2, we've had rodents, rabbits, coyotes, and things like that chewing holes in them, especially on a real dry year. We like to put it up here. It's a lot better up here, out of the way, easy to do. It's also really easy to check if it's, make sure it's dripping good. You can drive right through here, you can find a leak. You can make sure it's dripping, everything is going on really well. And we like a lot. One key thing that we have found out is you want to make sure every little bit of line, you might go every 100 feet or so, or 50 feet. You need to make sure you leave a little, you don't want this line tight. You can put it tight, but then every so often you want to leave a belly in it, because in the winter that hose will contract, and we've had it where it wants to break, pull it off in the ground, or break this coupler. We've never had it pull the hose off, but we've had to break these couplers. So make sure you leave some slack in there for that to contract, because when you're doing it in the warm weather, that hose is a lot longer than what it normally is. When that cools down, we've had some of these that have shrunk as much as 2 and 3 feet in a row. So leave yourself a little belly every once in a while, so that way it can expand and contract. So I'm going to run back over here and turn this on, and then you can see this start back up. So turn everything on here. Make sure you've got your valves open to places that you want. You can hear your water kind of starting to just gravity flow down through there. Got it turned on. Takes it a little while to get all out and filled in. This particular block, we're doing about 3,000 trees that we just planted this spring, and it works really well. You can see now starting to drip, and you can see here where we've run this. You can see how these two drip circles, you know, the wetness is getting where they're just about meeting together, and so that's kind of what you want. If your trees are a little farther apart, you can order this drip line, these emitters, at 2 feet, 3 feet, 18 inches, 4 feet, 6 feet, however you want. You can just talk to them. Our trees are planted about 32 inches apart here, and so we really like that 2-foot spacing. Seems to work really well, because in our soils, we're a little heavier soils. That 2 feet seems to be where we're just starting to touch those two drip zones together, so we're getting that whole area wet. One thing that we've discovered is you're better off, if you're starting to get dry, run your irrigation sooner rather than wait, because if you wait longer, you'll probably take 2 or 3 days to run this to get it really drip down and get to affect the soil. So you're better off to start running your irrigation a little sooner than you think. If it starts getting dry, start dripping it. You know, we're not using lots of water here, so you know, we might run 2 or 3 gallons of water on these a day. So you know, it's not like we're gonna, you know, over irrigate stuff. You know, and obviously if you get some rain, you know, you can kind of tell how things are acting. But we also do, on our NUA weather station, have a soil moisture probe, and I kind of start watching that to see how the moisture is. We've got a probe buried in our high density, so we watch that to know when we turn these things on and off. But the lesson I've learned is turn it on sooner rather than later, because there's quite a lag. And now if we had sandy soil, we would probably be able to get that to react faster, but we'd also have to start irrigating even sooner because it'd dry out faster. So I guess that's just my tips. Again, Steve Lewis with Oakwood Fruit Farm, and thank you guys for watching.